Mohit Gulati, the managing partner of ITI Growth Ventures.
When friends call for a talk, one can't say no. And I like the very illustrious opening line. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun to not have a script to life, right?
Yeah.
Life gets boring with a script, so let's keep it as free flowing. And candidly, let's.
With you, Mohit, even if I could deliver a script, I would not deliver one, right? So that getting said, Mohit, we're gonna the usual thing is, because the listeners that are tuning in would love to know who you are before we talk about what you do, and then obviously your opinions on what things are ongoing. So, Mohit, you studied in Pune, right? And after that, you've done your MBA from IIT Bombay, and you took a very interesting path into becoming a managing partner at a VC fund. You started out effectively working for a hedge fund, right? Could you talk a little bit about the history before the hedge fund and then what this hedge fund was all about?
So actually, you know what? Before we get to the working life, right? Let's take a sort of backstory into my life as a kid, who I was.
Totally, there cannot be a script.
There cannot be a script, exactly. No, but it's very relevant, right? Because I hope via this podcast, right, listeners and viewers of yours get to sort of, I like to say that, it's not just my story. I think so many of us have stories where, you look at them and you'll be like, ठीक है यार, अगर ये कर सकता तो हम भी कर सकते हैं, अपना time आएगा. So my story is one of those अपना time आएगा, with a little bit of a fundamental belief कि, there is some purpose to why you're on earth. So unfortunately, I was never a bright student, and both my parents are doctors. So the expectations from me as a student were very high.
Wow.
But I was never able to deliver them. And not like, when I say not deliver, right? So it's not like my father expected me or my mom expected me to get 85, 90%. They said, beta, 70 to 80 में दे.
अच्छा.
बड़ी मुश्किल से उसमें भी आते थे. ठीक है, so they knew कि ये topper नहीं बनेगा, at least बीच में आ जाए कहीं. So that did happen. And honestly, I think my childhood was more about, just being a dreamer, being very curious about a bunch of other things besides studies. And I was the guy in the class who would basically, I didn't have any particular ambition कि मेरे को engineer बनना है, मेरे को doctor बनना है. I was like, okay, class में 50 लोग हैं, सबके 50 लोगों की अपनी-अपनी चीजें हैं बनने वाली. I want to be all of them.
Awesome.
And somehow this journey, right, of what we do today, and you'll resonate with it, right? As fund managers, essentially, we are master of all trades and jack of none.
Absolutely.
Sorry, jack of all trades, master of none.
In some cases also that.
in some cases also that, right? And in a way, through our entrepreneurs' eyes, we are building all these businesses. So we get to do so many diverse things in a very horizontal manner.
True.
Versus just saying vertically, I'm a specialist of this. And that is why it's important to sort of see this entire journey in its continuity, because essentially, marks were of course poor. Medicine was something which I didn't get, which meant that I would essentially become Munna Bhai in my dad's clinic and say, Mamu, late jao. Because that's the only thing, right? I mean, my family business is parents are doctors, right? And what else can you do there besides, if you don't have a degree, there's no contribution that you can make, right? Besides being a compounder then. So fortunately got into engineering, passed engineering in 4 years, which I felt was a good achieving task. There were a little bit of a hiccup here and there when there were like these KTs and potential year downs, and we started dodging that. Latak came. So that was fun. But around third year of engineering, I think, jab thoda wake up sirka batti ho gaya, when I was like, okay, something has to be done about life, right? Like I've been living it too casually. And I was very comfortable in my casual life because, there was no real aspiration or goal at that time. I remember, I distinctly remember 2006, right? I'd started looking in the stock markets very early on, but didn't really understand it as well. But there was one terminology which came in my mind, right, was hedge funds. And I was very fascinated by the world of hedge funds. So, okay, boss, अपने life में hedge fund में काम करना है. With no backgrounds, with nothing to do with finance. I mean, degree not in finance. I didn't know how to use Excel at that time. I basically was like, boss, I need an internship in a hedge fund. And then I hustled like there's no tomorrow, because back then you didn't have the option of, connecting to people via LinkedIn and all of that. Right? So you had to either send cold emails or send faxes or even make random calls. So I realized that there are no hedge funds in India. The only places where, at least closer to India, where you would see hedge funds are Singapore and Hong Kong.
True.
So I started sending random cold emails to like 200 hedge funds across Singapore.
That's amazing. Wow.
And of course, I didn't get reply for, I think, 90% of them. And for the 10% that I got, they were like, you're a kid, you're 19 years old, we have nothing to offer and all of that. And then there's this one fund, which was a Tiger Cub, who said, okay, we will take you in.
What does a Tiger Cub mean?
A Tiger Cub is essentially a fund which has its initial seed capital given by Tiger Global.
Oh wow.
So Tiger Global would, sort of incubate multiple hedge funds and strategies via giving them 20, 30, 40 million seed capital.
And 2008, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, of course. But also the fact is, Tiger Global at that time also was like a $25 billion entity, right? So giving those 20, 30 million ke chote checks to say 50 people wasn't too large for them. So Kelusa, which was a billion plus hedge fund, that's when I started my internship. And I had like one of the best life learning and experience there. 1 year, half of which was on campus in Singapore, half of it was in India. Went and built out. So saw the entire peak of the euphoria of
So you joined around 2008, right?
2007, 8 is when I joined. So the markets were really, really hot at that time. The fund owned some crazy mid caps in India. I can't even name them because a lot of them have actually just shut down. Right? So they're like Lanco Infra and some real junk mid cap. DSK, right? They used to own like 9% of DSK. DS Kulkarni is a builder in Pune. And I remember going for that meeting with the fund manager. Right, so outside the door of the building, right, main promoter Mr. Kulkarni standing there with the board which says Kelusa Capital, DSK welcomes Kelusa Capital. So very early on, right, at that young age, just getting that exposure, feeling the vibe of a large corporate boardroom, being able to sit and breathe the same air as a promoter who is pedigreed or is large enough, that was really mesmerizing. And I was like, boss, I want to do this in some form or the other. I want to do this. So that's where the journey actually began.